everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal curriculum. I'm Mike Allen, and this is my partner, Andy Anderson. We're the founders of Avaya and the online communities Enlightenment Village and A Course in Miracles Village.
Today's teaching from Avaya University and Linda and Charlie Bloom explores post-traumatic growth. You will discover what are common experiences following adversity, such as abandonment and betrayal, and what's the best way to deal with them. What characterizes those who experience post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic stress? And what are the advantages of going through difficult experiences in our lives? All of these insights and more are in this teaching from Avaya University and Linda and Charlie Bloom. We hope you enjoy, take these insights and apply them in your life and share them with your friends and family.
And from all of us at Avaya, enjoy your journey and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Welcome back to Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal. I'm your host, Mary Mercier, and thank you so much for joining us. In this event, we're going to be talking with therapists, doctors, authors, and relationship experts, and they will be sharing with us tools and strategies to let go of our experiences of abandonment and betrayal so we can move on and live peaceful, powerful lives. And today I'm really excited to introduce our guests. They're going to talk about post-traumatic growth. Please welcome best-selling authors and relationship counselors, Linda and Charlie Bloom. Thank you for being here, Linda and Charlie.
Hello. Glad to be with you.
All right, so before we dive into any questions, I wanted to share a little bit about the two of you and all the work that you're doing. Linda, you're a licensed social worker, correct?
Correct.
And Charlie, you have a master's in social work, and they've both been trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors and have worked with individuals, groups, and organizations since 1975. And they've co-authored 4 books, which we are going to talk about one of those in specifics later. All right, so let's get started with our first question. As we all know, there are many forms of abandonment and betrayal. Could you give us some insight into the different types of those?
Well, yeah, when people think of betrayal, they often think of the big dramatic ones, like an affair, or perhaps some bold-faced lies or misappropriation of funds. But we also deal with a lot of small ones, which add up. The small betrayals, just like broken agreements, and ignoring your partner and not tuning into what their needs are and what they're feeling. And so the big dramatic ones, of course, they need to be addressed, but also to be sensitized to a lot of small ones can really be divisive in a partnership, can erode the foundation of trust and well-being. And so the small, medium, and large ones all need to be attended to.
Absolutely. I totally understand that one. What are some of the common symptoms that people are going to experience after abandonment and betrayal? What can we look for?
Well, one of the things that we encourage people to try to be mindful of is when you're noticing a change in your own mood towards your partner. If you're feeling less appreciative of them, or if you're noticing that you're feeling more grievances towards them, if you just don't feel as good about being around them.
Picking on the little things.
Yeah, that you're kind of noticing the things that you overlooked before. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've been betrayed. Betrayal shows up in 2 ways. One is it happens in the mind of the person who feels betrayed. And it doesn't mean that they have been betrayed. What it means is that they have a belief that their partner violated an implicit or explicit agreement in the relationship. So we don't talk that much about being betrayed by somebody as much as the experience of feeling betrayed.
So in your work, you talk about post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic stress. I am not familiar with those words. Can you elaborate on that? Tell me what that is.
Yes, it's in sharp contrast with each other. there's been a lot of media coverage for many years now about post-traumatic stress.
Absolutely.
People having nightmares, depression, anxiety, eating less, not having an appetite, overeating, addictions. And certainly after a loss, a grievous loss, like a divorce, like a death, like a traumatic experience, a car wreck, where it got popularized was the combat vets. But there hasn't been not nearly enough press yet about post-traumatic growth. And so we try to get the word out that a very severe experience, some people make a very good recovery after the acute stage, and they end up better than before, stronger than before, wiser than before as a result of the trauma. So one of the things that I say when we teach our classes is that crises are underrated. Do you know, we do everything we can through these painful experiences, but if we have to go through them, and if you live long enough, everybody is going to have some very difficult, challenging experience, then we could use that opportunity. When people talk about their trauma, they often say, my life as I knew it was shattered. I feel shattered.
I have said that myself.
I'm broken into pieces.
Yeah.
You know, my heart is
Absolutely.
And if we go through this period where we feel shattered and broken, there is an opportunity there to pick up the pieces and reassemble ourselves and our life, our attitudes, our beliefs in a way that really fits us, and that we become hopefully more humble, more creative, more resourceful, more resilient, maybe more connected to our family and community, and wiser than before because of the development that has actually been forced upon us. And it doesn't just happen by itself. We need to choose to use the experience as a growth opportunity.
Now, what characterizes those who experience post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic stress? What am I looking for with that?
One of the things that we've seen, though, in observing people who have more resiliency, that is more of an ability to I won't say bounce back, because you usually don't bounce back, you crawl back.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we noticed about people who don't stay overwhelmed by the grief, the rage, the pain of the trauma is that they're able to do two things that I think is, both of them are very critical. The first one they're able to do is to really give themselves permission to surrender to the experience of the trauma. And I don't mean to act it out, you know, if they feel enraged because their partner has cheated on them, that, you know, that they immerse themselves in rage and act out and, you know, do horrible things or say terrible things about them to other people, but they let themselves feel the full measure of their distress. They feel the anger. They feel the grief. They feel the fear of what's going to happen to me now. They feel this abandonment. They give themselves permission to feel that. And that is a crucial step, and it's got to be the first step. You can't go to a solution before you've really allowed yourself to be consumed by those feelings, even though it feels terrifying to surrender to them, because the fear is always, I'm going to just drown in my pain.
Almost mourning the relationship as if it was a death.
Well, and in some cases, really take away the almost, because there's been a true betrayal. And when that has illuminated conditions in the relationship that predisposed the betrayal to happen, in other words, we generally see that both people have played some part in the breakdown. Not saying that it's 50-50. Not saying
so we're
that
not allowed to just blame him.
Yes, you can for a while. You can focus on, you know, what that son of a gun did, and, you know, what a rotten scoundrel she is or whatever.
Right.
But give yourself permission to go into the victim mode for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about for weeks and months, but let yourself feel that what we consider to be legitimate outrage. That's valid,
Mm-hmm.
but don't get stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then
You got to move out of it.
Yeah, after you give yourself permission to go into it, you will naturally move into the next stage of recovery, which is to begin to see, now, is there anything for me to learn here? Is there any way that I could have played some kind of a part? Do I have any responsibility at all?
Owning it.
Owning, yeah, but you can't go to that solution before you've really let yourself feel the full measure of the grief, the anger, the pain that's there.
You know, I have a little story, Mary, that helps people after they have allowed themselves to really feel the anguish of the abandonment or the betrayal. When there is an opening for it, where they're just beginning to peek at, I can come through this. I can move out of this pain that
I'm feeling it.
I tell him this little archetypal story about the king who owned a diamond. And it was a big, beautiful diamond. It was his favorite of all his possessions. And nobody knows how it happened, but it sustained a deep gash right down the middle of it. And he was so upset about it. And he called in the lapidaries from the kingdom, and they tried to file it out and buff it out, and they couldn't get it out. It was too deep. But then a lapidary came from the far edges of the kingdom, and he said, yes, I can. And the king trusted him, and he took out his tools, and he etched a rosebud and let the gouge be a stem. He made beautiful leaves on it. And this is an image that people can hold fast to of making something beautiful. And once they begin to see, I can survive this, I can become more creative, I can become more tolerant, more patient, more forgiving, more responsible. That is a moment where they're moving out of the pain. And then there's lapsing back into it and moving out. And it's kind of a checkered recovery process. But they can glimpse maybe this abandonment or this betrayal isn't going to ruin my life. It's not a horrible black mark on our relationship. Maybe we could learn together from this and recover. And that this is a possibility of even being more beautiful, more strong, more wise than we were before.
Well, this is perfect because I know and have read about your ordeals and both of your willingness to learn from everything that you've been through. You wrote an actual book on making this all possible. Tell us about that book.
Yeah, it's actually the first book that we ever wrote, although it's the most recent book that we've had published. We wrote it after, at the end of a 10-year period of time in our relationship, in our marriage between 1982 and 1992, when we experienced a series of radical events in our life, beginning with a move from the East Coast to the West Coast and a complete change in careers for me. And
you were hitting all the stress buttons.
Yeah, I mean, everything. Yeah. And so it really kind of launched us into a very challenging period of time. And we wrote this book, the rough draft of it, at the end of this 10-year cycle. And we recently did the final edits on it several months ago, and it was published in April this year. And the title of the book is That Which Doesn't Kill Us. And the subtitle is How One Couple Became Stronger at the Broken Places. And that's really
It's a great title. I love the title, Charlie.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that. But really, we wrote it for two reasons. One is because it was a kind of a cathartic experience for us to sit down and write about this, to process what the hell was that all about?
Right.
How did we get so possessed to,
Who are we?
who are we? Who
Right.
are
I
we?
can imagine you were thinking that.
I mean, all of the above. And so that was one of the main reasons that we put this together. And we each wrote alternating chapters. And that's how the book is presented.
Right.
Where during one period of time, Linda is writing about her experience. And then in the next chapter, I'm writing about how I experienced. And so the reader gets to see, well, these two people were going through the same thing together, and yet they had totally different experiences. Now, how often does that happen with couples? It happens all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're always assuming that the other person is feeling and seeing things the same way that I am. Not necessarily.
Chances are they're not.
Chances are they're probably not.
Right.
Yeah, and so we really wanted people to see that there is hope at the end of the rainbow. I mean, that when the rainbow turns into a thunderstorm, that's not the end. There's gold there that can be harvested if you have a willingness to do what I just said earlier, which is to experience the full measure of your feelings, really be present with what does that leave you with? Where are you now? And also to raise the question, so what is it that there is for me to learn here? What parts of myself am I being reminded that I need to more fully cultivate and develop? How can I get stronger? How can I use this crisis as a means of becoming stronger?
And that was actually exactly what I was going to ask you. What are the advantages? And you might have just answered it for us. What are the advantages of going through these difficult experiences outside of just making us all stronger?
Yeah.
Well, when we are brought down to our knees, because all the things that worked for us before don't work anymore, it forces us to become more flexible, more creative. Sometimes that requires that we ask for help where we've been busy being independent before. Sometimes it means that we have to really revamp the way we're living. Sometimes we have to change jobs. There would have to be some changes made. And if we could get away with not making these big changes, we wouldn't make them. But when we're backed up against the wall, we're forced to find strengths we didn't know we had, resources we didn't know we had. And certainly that's what happened for us when this massive broken agreement about mutually supporting each other's careers, bringing up the kids together, when Charlie was lost in his work addiction and he was working 80-hour weeks and away from home so much, I had to find strengths in myself I didn't even know were there. Because I had to make all kinds of decisions about the kids because I couldn't even get him on the phone to talk with him because he was so committed to his career development at that time. And believe me, if there was any way that I could have avoided having to handle as much as I had to handle during
you probably would have.
I would have done anything not to have been put in the position that I was in. But I started a meditation practice. I started a women's group. I got resources and supports because I couldn't rely on him because he was absent so much. And I found a self-trust that I wouldn't have found if I hadn't been forced onto my own resources.
Did that come naturally for you, the self-trust?
No, it was a struggle. It was
I would think it would,
so deep. And you can see in the book, the people who read the book, it's a gory story. It's so shadowy. I was such a victim for a while, and I was such a whining complainer. And I really was
I
fighting
think
it.
we might be related.
You know what? When it was all said and done, and he finally did, resign from that job and came back into the family, we just squeaked through. We were so close to. I was so close to giving up and going the way of the separation and the divorce statistics. But when we got to the other side of it, I really had some gratitude for all that we had learned during that time. And we started a whole new career. Our relationship, really sprung to life after this bitter, dark, cold winter where it looked like everything was dead. And it's got a really happy ending. So the story tells the reader how hanging in there is sometimes, not always, but often rewarded with a self-trust and a link to your partner that you can't even imagine when you're so in it.
Right. I can't imagine being at your spot because my journey is just recently started. But I'm very much looking forward to being where you two are right now. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And like many of our viewers, I have a history of destructive relationship patterns, and I struggle sometimes with finding methods to break free from that behavior. Want to give me a little insight on that?
You're not going to like it, but I'll tell you.
I am prepared to love it.
Okay. There is no, quote, correct method for doing this.
Okay.
The method that we've used, we call the Braille method. It's trial and error. You're going to begin by doing the things that are natural to you. Unfortunately, those are also the things that got you into the mess that you're in the first place. If we bring an intention to really be open to learning from our experiences and bring a more judicial, critical eye to the results of what we're doing, if we get the right kind of support, which is critical in the recovery process.
I agree 100% with that.
Nobody can do it
Nope.
without effective support.
I've been trying for 52 years. You got to. You got to ask.
We've got to play it out too. The program tells us that we should be able to do it alone. Okay, fine. Let's do it alone and let's see how it goes. And it will go wherever it goes. With most people, it won't go to complete healing. With most people, they'll hit a roadblock somewhere. They'll get stuck. They'll find themselves repeating the same things. At that point, when you're making your best effort and it ain't happening, that's the time to get support.
And I want to share some specifics.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Profound support when we were hanging by threads. And I got confronted about how tightly I was gripping onto my vision of what this marriage had to look like. And I got whacked around by somebody that I really trust.
Not literally.
Not literally.
Yeah, I know.
That I needed to practice non-attachment and loosen up that white knuckle grip about what it had to look like. I also, from the same consultant, thank goodness, that I trusted, said, you need to practice forgiveness meditation for him, for not being husband charming, and for yourself, for not being wife charming and mother charming. Because I had these lofty expectations about who we were supposed to be, and I needed to be more forgiving and more tolerant and more accepting about our imperfections, because aren't we all such a mixed bag? The one other thing that was critical turning point so that we weren't clashing and so angry fighting, which made the difficult separations even more difficult, is I thought I was being a highly responsible person, and I had to jump up to another level of responsibility, and really see.
Explain that a little. Explain that again to me.
The responsibility that I had been defining it is, I'm making all the decisions. I'm rearing these kids by myself like a single mom. I'm working too. And the level of responsibility that I needed to take wasn't these concrete things. It wasn't about doing so much. It was about being. The non-attachment,
There
the
you
forgiveness,
go. Okay.
about being more kind and more generous of spirit, and disciplining my wild mind to see the beauty that he still was all the time, because I was demonizing him. And I saw that, yeah, there was some demon there, but there was an angel there too. The one I fell in love with was still there, and he was just lost. And to trust that he could come back if I didn't drive him away by being such an arch bitch.
There's a quote that I've heard many times. When is enough enough? Never, if you're with the right person. And obviously, I'm watching you two. That's amazing that you've come through this, and there's hope for me and so many other people out there.
Make one.
Please, go ahead.
I don't want people to get the idea that we espouse the philosophy that all marriages can and should be saved. We don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
There are genuine mismatches. There are times when it is appropriate and even responsible to call it off.
Right.
And most of the people that we deal with who have been divorced, it seems like there's more, it's more frequent that people will call it off sooner than they should, then they will stay in the relationship longer than they should.
Okay, yeah.
So we do encourage people to really be honest with themselves about what they can do and what might be possible. Sometimes the decision to leave a relationship doesn't come from the sense that I've given this my best shot. I've done everything I can. I feel at peace with myself. I don't feel like I'm running away from something. I feel like I've done the best I can.
Right.
And an act of
right.
This is a responsible act.
Mm-hmm.
For
yeah.
me.
That's
So,
yeah. I totally understand that part. Okay, so here's an interesting twist here. As part of our conference, we are giving our viewers a challenge for every interview. So if you were to give our viewers one challenge to take on right now, or a recommendation for an action to take, what would it be? And I'm going to ask each one of you that question separately. Mm-hmm. So what would we give our viewers for a challenge?
I would want people to live in the question about whether they feel that they're actualizing their potential, whether they're on task, whether they're on purpose, whether they're using their inner resources and their outer resources and their supports as a growth path to learn and grow from what life is handing them. Because it really breaks my heart that people waste so much of their potential.
Potential and time, two biggest wasted things.
And these people who have some struggles in their relationship, the vast majority of people who get divorced don't even go to one marriage counseling session.
Oh, wow.
They're really good support people out there, writing books, consulting, doing counseling. And even if your partner doesn't want to go, just one person motivated to go, to use your opportunities, both your inner resources and your outer resources, to get past those places where you're stuck. So my challenge is, are you really on a growth path and using the opportunities that life hands you as growth opportunities?
Oh, that's a good one. All right, Charlie, what do you got for us?
Okay, here's mine. I challenge all of your viewers to pick a person in your life with whom you have an important relationship. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a relative, but somebody with whom you have what you consider to be a very important relationship. And to give some thought to the question, is there anything that I have ever thought I would like to tell this person that I want them to know, but I'm afraid to tell them? I'm afraid to tell them because I think that they might get their feelings hurt. I'm afraid that they might get angry at me. I'm afraid they might get defensive. I don't want to rock the boat. For withholding important concerns, desires, questions, and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And see if you can present that feedback, that question, that request, whatever form it takes, to that person in a way in which you are cognizant of your desire to have them take it in the right way, so they won't feel defensive, so they won't get angry, so they won't feel threatened, so so they will feel a sense of appreciation for your honesty. But
yeah. Wow.
We can get away with a lot of truth telling as long as it comes from the heart, that it comes from love and compassion and kindness, and to move the relationship to a deeper place of well-being.
Right. Yeah. Whew.
Think that's big enough?
Woo! I'm taking a deep breath over here. And I just want to remind all our viewers to go ahead and share about their challenges on our Facebook group. I got to breathe for a minute. That was really good for our first challenges. I love them. Thanks.
I'll give you the big one later.
Oh, this wasn't my big one? Okay. All right, so I want to remind everyone that there is a button below this video, and when you click on it, it's going to lead you over to a really great special offer from Linda and Charlie. Why don't you guys tell us about it?
Well, we wrote a book, the very first one that we published, called 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. Simple lessons to make love last.
I've read it. It's amazing.
That was narrowed down. Thank you very much.
It was terrific.
That was narrowed down from over 300. There was so much that we didn't know when we got married. We were so young and dumb and unconscious, and we wanted to narrow it down so it wasn't such a big, heavy tome. And now everybody's so busy that they wanted us to narrow it down to our 10 most important. So we picked 10 of our favorites, and that's what the free gift is.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks so much for offering that to us. And any other final insights you'd like to share with us? Tell us about?
Well, I want your listening audience to be thinking in terms of their next steps for their own development, because relationships are fraught with opportunities. Do you know there's an abundance of opportunities to learn and grow if we have that orientation to use our relationship as part of our spiritual practice and practice for growth and development. And so on our website, our next classes that are coming up, we come to the East Coast and teach at Kripalu every January. Maybe some of them want to come to class. We have over 400 blogs just for free out there in the blogosphere.
Wow.
We have other free ebooks if they come to our website, bloomwork.com. They can get our free ebooks. But for them to be looking in terms of how to use what their relationship flushes up, about any old wounds from the past, childhood wounds, adult wounds. The differences can be rich opportunity for growth, and how to use it all as a growth opportunity.
Charlie?
Just this. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth the time. It's worth the effort. It's worth the risk to really make your relationship and relationships your highest priority. Besides, of course, your commitment to your own well-being.
Right.
I'm not saying you put that above that, but that, what people say about it, it's true. It does take work, and it's worth it.
I love that. I really love that. It's worth it.
Yeah.
So, that's a perfect spot for us to end. It's worth it. I love that. I'm definitely taking that one home. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And here's to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Avaya Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal wrap-up. My partner, Ike, and I are the founders of Avaya, and Ike is the spiritual director of our Enlightenment Village community. Hello, Ike.
Hello, planet Earth.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this last interview with Mary and Linda and Charlie Bloom. I love Linda and Charlie. I interviewed them for our Overcoming Codependency Avaya online conference not long ago, and I just loved their message. I thought they were a great example of a very powerful, amazing couple that, people who are looking for a partnership can model after. So I really wanted, Mary to talk with them. So one of the things that they talked about, Ike, that I loved was how we can grow from adverse experiences, right? We can have an adversity in our life and it can actually make us stronger. And, one of the things I always think about in that conversation is our friend Tim Freak, right? So you interviewed Tim Freak, God, years ago for your first film, Leap. And and of course I'm paraphrasing, but one of his best lines in that movie is, right, whilst you're in the middle of that difficult scenario or that adversity, you don't think it's funny, right? It's really hard. But once you're 2 years away from that scenario, man, I can look back at that and it's kind of funny.
Right. Whilst you're in the middle of it, it's not funny. Afterwards, it's very funny.
And Ike puts his, a little bit of British accent twist on it. But
hopefully I was at least in the British realm there. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah, and I think this is something Mary, as we walk with her on the beach every day and we get to know Mary better, and as she does these interviews, she's recognizing how much she is growing out of having traumatic experiences happen in her life. And obviously,
wait, are you saying hanging out with us? Is that the traumatic experience?
Yep, that's every day she has to hang out with us. It's very hard. She, every day gets those steps in at the beach while our dogs walk. But yeah, I mean, I can look back in so many scenarios in my life where in the middle of it, I was like, oh dear God, this is horrible. And then looking back, oh, wait a second, that person wasn't right for me, breakup, history and that kind of stuff, and how we can, look back and now kind of laugh at it. Oh, wow. Okay. Now I see why that unfolded how it did. So it always really reminds me of you, and you're always talking about how, right, if we just didn't judge how things were unfolding and had faith, right, in the experience and how it's unfolding, how much easier life would be. And that's really how you live your life. So
yeah, I mean, challenge is a part of life, right? It's the Dalai Lama saying, right, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, or that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, or my preference is that which doesn't kill us makes us stranger. I mean, right, it is through adversity that we grow.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there's other ways to grow, but through challenges, we have the opportunity to grow through challenges. Maybe we won't, but often we do. Here we've got one of our kids in gymnastics and one of our kids in dance, and it's hard. Brielle's dancing 4.5 hours a night sometimes, and it's hard, and she gets better because it is hard. And I would say, I always think of something like A Course in Miracles, right? A Course in Miracles is supposed to be a gentle book that gets you to enlightenment, or let's call it the awareness of what is. And it's a gentle approach, right? And then there's faster approaches, or approaches where, right, you do more work, you work harder in the book, you spend more time with it. I think the more time you spend challenging yourself with a lot of things in life, the faster you get to where you want to go,
mm-hmm.
But adversity creates the opportunity for growth if we choose to see it that way. But if we choose to see adversity as we're a victim, then there's no change. So really, as I often speak about, it comes down to, even adversity, it comes down to how we view it, what our perception of that is.
Right.
I think it's very possible to not really grow at all if challenges lead us to seeing ourselves as a victim. But if we choose to see it as, wow, I overcame that. I learned how to balance on that beam. I learned how to make that 3-point shot, right? I learned how to build that website. Then yeah, adversity is a very powerful fuel to be more confident, to be more happy, to be more, outgoing, more fill in the blank.
Right. It reminds me of a conversation we have regularly about, right, going to the gym. You're not going to build muscles at the gym unless you're literally ripping and tearing them. Like as you do your bicep curls, you are literally ripping those muscles and, micro tears and all that stuff in order to build that muscle up again. And then it gets bigger and it gets stronger. But without that adversity, without that tear, without that rip, there is no growth. So I think that's a great, well, actually, Andy, that was a great metaphor.
That was excellent. That was excellent. Yeah, I think there's too many things in life where we've been sold a bag of goods that things are easy, right? Or you hear that saying it's easy, but it's easy, but not, I don't know, whatever.
Simple.
It's simple, but not easy.
Yes.
It doesn't really, right? It's all perception. It's simple, but not easy. It's easy, but not simple. Everyone's looking for the simple, easy way out. And I really do believe that when we put our hands down in the mud and we do the work or plant the flowers, the tree grows. And if we just sit around and imagine that the tree is going to grow,
right,
the tree doesn't grow. First of all, it's not in the soil, and you're not watering it. And I don't want to get up and water the tree this morning. I don't want to pick the weeds. There's a perfect metaphor, right? People don't want to pick the weeds in their mind, and they just end up with a garden full of weeds because they're not willing to do the daily, several times a day work of questioning things and saying, is this really true for me?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. The daily practice. And, it always, it's interesting because you talk a lot about the process, right? Inside Enlightenment Village and just in Avaya in general, we have this process. It's a worksheet that you can download off the website. We'll actually put a little link to it below. That is exactly that, right? Is I tell myself this and the truth is this, and it goes through a few other steps, but it's that constant weeding process of, I just told myself that because I was abandoned when I was 12, as in Mary's scenario, right? Then I'm going to pick that weed out, doesn't mean that I'm going to continue to be abandoned by all men in my life, right? So that's a good way of looking at it.
But it does to a lot of people because it's much easier to just keep reliving the same stories and patterns over and over again than to stop and think for ourselves. And
Right.
When we stop and think for ourselves, our lives truly begin to change.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for this wrap up, and everybody, thank you for tuning into this. Ike, are there any last insights on what we've been chatting about after this Linda and Charlie Bloom interview?
Yeah, I think it's just the continuous reminder, listen and watch, whether you're listening or watching, listen and watch all these interviews and practice. It's just like going to the gym, exercising the possibility muscle. Practice, practice, practice. Consume the content, work on anything that's important to you and chip away and chip away and chip away. Let us remember the great Zig Ziglar who wrote, I think I'll meet you at the top, 1 page a day. But at the end of a year or whatever, he had his book. Take the things that you want in your life, and even if you don't have them today, believe that you can have them tomorrow, and then do what you need to do so that you do have it tomorrow. Patience and persistence, accomplishes all things.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Avaya wrap up, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.